On this week's episode, we react as Nintendo finally confirmed the Switch 2, and we take a deep dive into gaming culture, what it looked like then, where we're at now, and what we think the kids will inherit. And on this week's Pixel Picks Showdown, we name the best arcade racing game. All this and more on the Pixel Parents podcast. Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Pixel Parents podcast, the show that discusses all things gaming from the perspective of parents. I am your host, Liam Kirkkelvin, and today I'm of course joined by the bearded one, Scott, the tastemaker. Curry, how are we, Scott?
The Switch 2 is real.
And,
you know, yeah, we're all real now. This is real life. The leaks have come to fruition and the Nintendo Switch Poo exists.
Jesus Christ.
I'm here for it. Apart from that though, generally speaking, I'm okay. I'm excited because I have a fucking earth-shattering announcement.
Yes.
For this podcast.
As teased.
This is one of those TikTok moments though where it's like, wait for it because it'll come. And it's going to, don't you worry. But I'm alright. I genuinely don't have anything to say or moan about. You know, it's been good. It's just been one of those days.
Yeah.
Where you don't want to wake up.
It came into my head straight away.
Sucks. But I'm alright. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I feel like well into the swing of January now. Just back into the groove. The festive season is a bit of distant memory.
How about that 5-week wage month?
Yeah. Do you know what? We're actually doing all right. Most Januaries, it's always the case of we rue the day we decided to indulge a bit at Christmas and all that, and you're like, it's getting a bit tight, but we're all right. And considering we've got other grown-up things to think about, house moves and all that stuff, yeah, that's been pushed back a couple of weeks. But to be honest with you, I'm actually quite happy about it because I feel like I needed a couple of weeks to get my feet back under the desk at work. It's a busy time, so yeah, it feels like my head's screwed on. And I'm just excited to be chatting about Switch 2 and everything else today because it's always a joy.
It's always a joy. It's always nice. And yeah, I'm excited also. I love shit like that. Yeah, so let's get to it. Get housekeeping out of the way and then let's get some housekeeping out the road first before we get the toes straight into it, I suppose. So for those listening, this is the Pixel Parents podcast, the weekly podcast by parents who game for those who do the same, where each week we discuss all things gaming whilst raising little ones. If you want to be part of the podcast, come say hello and share your thoughts with us at pixelparents.bsky.social on Blue Sky, or write to us at pixelparentspodcast@gmail.com. If you like what you hear and you want to support the show, you can leave a 5-star review and share this podcast online with your friends. Of course, that really helps us out. And of course, thank you to everyone that joins us each and every week. Now, before we get to the next part, I should also add a little bit of housekeeping, a housekeeping bonus. Oh,
Scott and I are doing some work in the background. You know,
I love how you add me on this. It's just like you text me and I'm like, yep.
We scheme, we plan, and you know, all of these podcasts are curated. They are curated. You know, we've got some really exciting ideas and some cool things might be happening in the future as well. More on that as it happens. But we're also looking at ways in which we can improve the podcast as well. So more on that as it happens. If it means that there's any issues in terms of getting this to you every week, we'll let you know ahead of time, but keep posted to our Blue Sky channels for that as well. Now, with all that out the way, Scott, what have you been playing this week?
Okay, so let's start off with the obvious one. First game of this week has been Grand Theft Auto 5. First game, Scott? That would indicate that there's a second game that you've been playing this week.
Right.
More to come on that soon. But I've been playing Grand Theft Auto 5, and as I was telling you the other night when we were playing COD, it's still Grand Theft Auto 5. Do you know what I mean? Just slicker, looks much better than I can ever remember. It's
slicker than your average.
Slicker than your average. Yeah. Grand Theft Auto. It's phenomenal. And there's songs in it that I'd totally forgotten about. Like, throughout it, I'm just listening to it and it's like, oh my God, there's other songs here. Like, I used to just listen to the pop one or other random songs like the rock radio stations and stuff like that. It's just like, oh my God, this is incredible. But, I was kind of feeling a wee bit fatigued by Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm going to try a few other things. So I thought I'll put it down just for a bit because, I've been making good time on my Grand Theft Auto playthroughs recently. And I think I'll put 5 down just for a wee bit because you don't need to. You can leave it and come back to it. Like, I don't have to complete it under a certain time. I don't have to worry about that. I can just continue my way through it.
True.
So I'm going to go downstairs. We've got the Xbox downstairs because we're rejigging the house and stuff, and we don't have Sky downstairs now, so we're having to use my Xbox as the entertainment machine that it was always meant to be.
Yep.
And I've taken on board some of the thoughts and feelings of Game of the Years past and present.
Right.
Whereby I thought I'll try a few games. So I looked through Game Pass and I spotted 9 Souls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's certainly a game, Right.
Good or bad?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
It's kind of Metroidvania-esque, Sekiro-esque,
I've got it downloaded. I've not played it yet.
It's got something to it. I think the story's interesting enough and the characters are interesting, but what gets you is like the combat from where I am. I mean, I've played maybe 2 or 3 hours of it, and the combat is you deflect, you do this parry. It's not even a parry, it's you kind of zoom through the enemies, right, and then you explode something and it sets them off and it just explodes it. That's as much as I know. I got through one of the first sections of it and I struggled with it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm going to just run through this, get to the save point, and then we can continue from there. So I've made a wee bit of progress, but I can imagine that as it gets going, the more that the enemies sort of change and the more your abilities change, it will grow on me. So I can see something there. But I was also like, I don't really know if I want to play this. I don't really know if I can be arsed. So this led me to the big announcement.
Right, okay, here we go. Finally.
Big, tasty, hot, steaming announcement for this podcast in 2025. And it is that I have bought game 1 of 4 for this year.
Right, okay. Right.
And I have been playing that game since I bought it. Now, I have played this game for probably 12, 14 hours.
Good start.
Which would indicate that I'm quite enjoying it. And this game is a game that, probably shouldn't like. But I'm thoroughly enjoying myself in it.
Okay.
And I'm proud to say that I am now a denizen of Night City. I have been playing Cyberpunk 2077.
He's done it. We've got him. We have got him.
I fucked around with the character creator for far too long on it to realise that it doesn't matter. Like, my character could be...
I bet you did, eh?
I did. Oh, I did. Don't you worry about that. I fiddled around with that for a wee while. But I've just got this weird fat schlub guy that's just... He has no place in this world. Nomad background. Some kind of... I was going for Sting. So I thought, lone wolf in the desert, work your way through that. But I'll say this now, and if this comes back to bite me at any point,
right,
I'm going to be fucking furious. This is going to be the old guy from Life is Strange.
Right, okay.
This is going to be him all over again. But if Jackie Wells hurts me in any way, shape or form, or if anything happens to this man, I am going to be fucking furious. Fuming. Because I tell you something, he's the fucking man.
Yes.
I love the way that, you're talking to him and he'll say something in Spanish, but the game kind of flickers it. So it's like, it's translating it on the fly as you're reading it. It's like, that's fucking incredible.
It really is.
It's so smart. I'm glad that I've waited this long to play it because I think that had I played this is going to come as a stupid way to say this, but if this had come pre-Grand Theft Auto, I think that I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it anywhere near as much as I am.
That makes sense.
Being quite sort of methodical and, and what's the word? It's very persistent in the things that I want to do with it.
Yeah.
But I've just been going round, so is it Regina? It's the first person that gives you sort of missions and she phones you up and gives you wee contracts and stuff like gigs, I think they're called. I've been doing everything for her. So I've literally been going out, taking out cyber psychos or whatever it is, and just fucking knocking them out. I thought I would hate the sort of like the kind of melee combat, and to an extent I do, but
just you
where it does shine is like your stealth makes sense.
Yeah.
I love the whole, the synths or whatever it is, the synthetic shit, your cyber pish. I love all that kind of hacking things, distracting enemies, and then running up behind them and scudding them. It's class. Love the gunplay in it. I think it's brilliant. Aye. And I've been quite sort of intentional in going in with a handgun, silence handgun, and just taking out everyone that I possibly can. It's phenomenal. I have a thing or two to say about the music, but it's obviously music that it has to be there, right? But I mean, I could take or leave it, but
not a strong point in the game.
No, it's not. But where it really does shine, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but where it does shine is the world that you inhabit.
That's phenomenal.
And the people that live in it. Like, it feels that every single person there has purpose. Walking down the street and you bump into some random monk who needs help, and it's like, fucking fine, I'll go and help you then.
Yeah.
And then you start to learn if you're seedy underworld of Night City, and it's like, it's so intense in what it's doing, but it also just says like, here is this world, just go and fucking do what you want. For the most part, like, I've done maybe 2 or 3. I think I've just hit I have just hit a huge story beat in it. Something to do with some relic and some old cunt. But
some mission, man.
it's where I am at the moment, and it's all fucking hit the pan. It's class. But I'll reiterate, if anything happens to Jackie Wells, I'll give up games because what a hero.
He really is.
Dex is fucking Mark Henry.
Mark Henry.
Big fucking, big sexy. Judy.
Yep.
Love Judy. It's just, it's phenomenal. And it's like, I've played it for this long and I can remember the characters' names, which is really telling of it. I kind of thought that coming into it, or have kind of from the outside looking, and I just thought, these are just characters that are just one-offs.
Yeah.
But they really do stick around, and like, it's a sum of its parts, but it's excellent so far. Like, I'm absolutely loving it. I do not, and this goes for the Witcher series as well, right? But the menus and the crafting systems and everything in these games, I have not a fucking clue what I'm doing.
I will admit, it will take a bit of time. Even as far in as you are just now, you're still obviously at the foothills of the game, but you've done the right thing doing the side content or the side missions. When you start to like get your hang on like the Ripper docs and making those enhancements, but you kind of have to play more, earn more to kind of afford it.
Because you need to create more space.
Yeah,
like I think I've got like 30 or 40 in terms of how many things I can use. So I've got hundreds of random shit in there. Like, the best thing that I've done in this game so far is unlock double jump.
Oh, that's outstanding.
That if there's anything that should have been in that game from day one, from moment one, should have been a double jump, because it changed everything. Like, I took out this entire wee dock place, just double jumping from fucking area to area, just taking people out. It's phenomenal.
It's what I love about it is that it really does enable you to create your own build.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to be like that kind of, I don't know, cyborg ninja type, then it was melee focused. Or if you wanted to go down the stealthy silence pistol, or just balls to the wall walking tank, you can do it.
And for the most part, it doesn't like punish you for doing it. Like, I like some of the snippets where, because I was just getting in and fucking murdering everything.
Yeah.
But
it's fun.
Then I was taking people out non-lethally, and it was like you were getting other parts to the whole story with that.
Yeah,
like there's other things that happen there that are really quite interesting. And it's definitely an interesting. I don't see it, with Night City, with in comparison to the Grand Theft Auto games that I've played prior. I could walk you through. I could walk you hand in hand through Vice City and tell you everywhere. With Night City, I think that, probably by design, it's not memorable. Like, and I don't know, you haven't played it for a million hours, might disagree with me, but give it time. I don't think I could tell you anywhere on the map at all.
I totally am with you, because at first I was like that. And I was like, everything seems the same, and it does, because it's that very cyberpunk dystopian world. But over time, the more missions you do, it's like any other game. It does take a bit longer in Night City because everything there's so much similar stuff. But then you've got the parts outside of it, like where the nomads are and stuff as well. And then you've still got like the Phantom Liberty DLC, which is absolutely fucking phenomenal. And there's new areas within that as well. So I'm very excited for you. I think in terms of such a richly detailed world, and I feel that it's such a shame that it had such the terrible start that it did. I nearly never went back to it because I remember buying that day one. We were at uni when Cyberpunk got announced, and I was so hyped for it. And it landed. Granted, I had it in Series X, and I didn't have any of the problems, but it was still, it just felt a bit flat. And I remember one of the opening cutscenes with Dex, and he's smoking the cigar, and it's just like not what you kind of thought it would be. Then you fast forward, 4 or 5 years later, and it's like the volumetric effects and the smoke. And the light, the world looks it's one of those games like that. I can't believe that this is real.
It's ridiculous. It's like, I think you take it for granted how good it looks. Like it's ridiculous, and it's quite telling on how The Witcher, whatever it is going to be. I can't remember what it is now. Is it 5? 4? Whatever that's going to look like. Like, it's just going to be unreal. But
let them cook.
Aye, it's just telling for giving these people time. Like, you can't discount these things. Like, I think the right decision was made to pull it and give them more time to sort of incubate and then send it out. I mean, granted, it still has its problems. Yeah,
it does.
Like, there was one cutscene where I was standing with Dex and he turned around and walked straight through a locker. Like, and I mean, straight through. Every single time I try and call my car, it's fucked. Like, it ends up in like somewhere. My game crashed because it ended up in a bin, like a skip somewhere when I called it. So there's moments like that, but for the most part, I mean, I've been having some fucking time with it. It's class.
It's brilliant. I think it is. I'm so happy to hear it, and I think the way you've approached it is the right way. If you try to beeline it, you miss out on so much of the other stuff the game's chucking at you. And it's so dense. Now, it's so dense.
Tell me this, because I feel like I'm missing something though. Like, other people that you'll just meet in the world.
You do, yeah.
Like just that things will happen spontaneously, or is it all markers? Like, do they show up on the minimap?
They will, and you'll also get a lot through like your phone effectively, and then they'll kind of pop in that way. So usually when the games, you feel like it's pulling you too much in one direction, something will happen and it'll pull you in another. The story is paced at a really, really good pace, I suppose, just in terms of giving you enough variety. There is the odd point, but it's like, right, well, do you know what? You need to wait a bit of time to progress it, so here's some other stuff. And then it just provides you other rabbit holes to go down.
Right.
Like with other people that are wanting to give you gigs and stuff like that. And it's just endless amount of stuff to do. I think in the early days of it, because it is so dense and there's so much in it, it does take its time a little bit to kind of get you there, but I think it has to hold your hand a little bit. By the end of it, I mean, if this is how you feel about characters now, there's still ones to be introduced, and they leave an impression on you big time, and big and small, I have to say.
I'm saying this, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again. If anything happens to Jackie Wells, I'm done. I'm fucking. If he fucks me in any way, shape, or form, and that's not a sexual connotation, because I know what this game's like.
Imagine.
But if I don't think my heart could take it.
Well, you've got,
for such a short period of time that he's been in my life, he's just bursting with personality. Like,
it really is.
It's ridiculous.
I will say, like, all the characters in this game are written so well that you do care for them. And it was not something I was expecting. And I don't know if it's something to do with your expectations are different, because it's like, well, maybe is this just going to be like a bit of a open world RPG Fallout type? I mean, it's not. It's a lot. Some people would kind of liken it to it because the story's only about 20-ish hours long. There's so much more to it than that. And then you still have your dessert.
Yeah.
The Phantom Liberty DLC, which is, by that point, you're going to have like the most hench build, and it's fun because it's still chucking different challenges at you. and it just never gets boring. Just kind of taking on these people in your own way. That's
the key point of it. So that's my announcement for this week.
I'm delighted,
and it's completely derailed all my plans because it's taken over my life now. Like,
Year of the Backlog. I'm not counting that as one game you've purchased.
No, this is one game.
But how many did you say last week?
4.
Okay. Well,
so
25% of the way through your
Grand Theft Auto 6 better get delayed, because that means that Metal Gear Solid 3 is something else.
Delta,
something else.
Snake Eater.
Yeah. So the two of them are locks. Like they are in there. But the next two, I think I made a list and I was like, oh shit, I've actually got 4 games that I want to buy this year. But we'll see.
We'll see. Well, as for myself, I finished Dragon Age this week. So, absolutely adored that game.
It's class, isn't it?
I did my best to stretch it out, but when push came to shove, I thought, I really just want to see the end of the game now. I worked my allies up as much as I possibly could, spent a good few hours with it over the course of the week, but then at the weekend I was like, no, I just want that big popcorn end. I mean, this is the whole point of BioWare games, the end missions.
The end missions.
This one, I'll steer clear of details, so I don't want to spoil it, so I'll keep it brief, but all I'll say is this is one of my favourite BioWare end missions. Not quite like Mass Effect 2 or 3, actually. I enjoyed the third one, I must say. But it was absolutely, like, the ending of it, everything that happens, the story twists and turns, it was fantastic. And I must have been sitting there. It took me about 2 hours to get through the end of it.
That's it, aye.
Which was phenomenal. And then by the end of it all, you get through the credits, and the way the story wraps up, I just felt good.
Did you feel satisfied with the way your game ended?
I did. Even though I know, like, listen, I didn't get the best ending where everybody lived, right? So I did lose a member of my party.
So did I.
Is it a spoiler if I say who?
No.
Right, so I lost Davrin.
Same.
But he made the right choice for us, that's all I'll say.
I think he made the right choice for himself.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can also add that. But I totally forgot how attached you become to these characters. And I remember at first, the best compliment I can pay to Dragon Age of Veilguard is at first I was thinking with the characters, I'm not sure. As time went on, I got so attached and invested in all their stories, even ones that I hardly even used.
Who did you not use?
The ones I probably used the least, I would say. Not that I didn't use them, I did use them, but the ones I used the least was Emmerich, even though I did their companion quests and all that. Didn't use him as much, Doctor Strange. But I still was so invested in that story. But then there was ones that you used a lot more. So it's like Balada, for example, Nev, Tash, Davrim was another one, Lucanus. Like, in fact, to be honest with you, I mixed and matched. I never had like 2 that I would stick with all the time. Probably didn't.
Did you romance anyone on it?
Yeah, Nev.
Oh, unreal.
I had to.
I accidentally went down the wrong route that I wanted to, and I ended up romancing Harding in it. And it's weird as fuck. It's cool though. Like,
I mean, Harding's story was cool.
Yeah.
I thought, I really did thought that they put a lot of good time into it. We talked a lot about it in our Game of the Year anyway, but I feel like I had a massive space in my gaming time where it was, because I was like, the combat, everything, loved it. So then I decided to start Life is Strange because, as I had said last week, interesting story for this one, which I'm excited to share. So it was a slow burn to this game, like, to start, and Life is Strange usually is like that, but this one's a particular slow burn, I'll admit. But once the first chapter's done, it gets its hooks in you. So I'm just ready to pick it up again from there. Good vibes, but I didn't start it. My wife started it. Exactly. She is not a gamer at all. But we've been talking a lot about just kind of not taking more of her interest, but just making more of that effort to ask about what's your interests like this week, that type of thing, because she's a big reader. I can't read. So
literally cannot read.
I just cannot read. So it's not me. I don't have the patience for reading. But she was just like that. I really appreciated just like, she was like, what type of game do you think I would play? And I was like, well, do you know what? Life is Strange True Colours. I was going on about that, but I was like, I'm starting the new Life is Strange game now. And she just came over and took the controls, like, right, show me what to do. She'd got a good like hour or so into it, but then she started to kind of lose her patience a bit, but she still like enjoyed what she played, but it was still appreciated. It was a nice wee moment. Then I took over. It's like, give me it's my controller.
Pro gamer time.
That's it. Here we go. I'll show you how to run. I don't think I should become a gamer anytime soon, but I think it's the infectiousness of what we do every week, talking about, you know, gaming, bringing people and families together. I think it piqued our interest, which is cool. But yeah, I'm continuing down that path.
That's what they call influencing.
That's it.
Fucking influencing our own family here.
That's it.
Unreal.
That's it. And I'm obviously still playing Balatro.
I mean, who's not?
My game is just unreal now, Scott.
I
am become Jimbo.
Right. Can I ask one thing? Try, is it the green steak?
Mm-hmm.
Just try it. It is a fucking nightmare. I can't get past it. Every single time I play it. So I'm honestly like, I play it every single morning. My daughter watches the telly while we're having breakfast. Green steak, required score skills faster for each ante.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a fucking nightmare. Can't do it.
Oh, no one about. I like that it's in there.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, you will do it eventually.
Yeah.
You will. It's like the first time you play it, as you suss it out, and it's like, right, how am I supposed to go about this? And you win a run, and it's like, before you know it, you're doing that more, then it's like, right, how can I get as high an ante as possible? I can't remember which the highest one is, but I mean, it's like miles off that. But it's still great. It's just like such a good like bit of you time. You sit down, you play it, you get the serotonin hits from those multipliers.
The good thing about it is that you can play for 5 minutes or you can play for 5 hours.
Usually
and you get the equal amount of satisfaction from playing it.
Yeah, I mean, I have put a disgusting amount of time into this game on the PlayStation and on my phone. I don't even want to see how much time I've put on my phone, but even on PlayStation, like having that in the portal, as I've mentioned before, it's just so good. But yeah, been a bit of that. But then also we've got a bit of, before we go into the big news, right? Got a bit of bad news in the last week, which is Assassin's Creed Shadows got delayed.
Fucking mate, I am the Mystic
crystal,
Greg,
the crystal ball holders,
the Mystic Greg of this podcast.
Well, we both said that as well. Ubisoft will be getting sailed in the river,
fucking punted.
Right, looks like it.
They're talking about, what was it? They were talking about them and Tencent like divvying up some of the IPs that they've got and stuff as well.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to go, because I'm just not a fan of Tencent at all.
I just want them to fucking see, instead of doing all this, get a Splinter Cell out and then fucking do it. Like, stop delaying this nonsense.
Well, it was for those
making fucking Just Dance games and Rabbids games. Fuck off.
For those that weren't in the know, it was originally due to come out in February. I think it was Valentine's Day, wasn't it? And now it's been delayed to the 20th of March.
Yes.
As listeners of the show will know, this was one of my most anticipated games of the year next to GTA 6. But my house date also moved. So this is now going to be the first game I play in the new house, I imagine. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Well,
it probably will be, actually. It'll kind of...
We'll dovetail nicely.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones I'm like, yep, let it cook. I'm not going to lie and say I'm not worried about it. Like, because I'm like, what state will this game arrive in? Not as in like performance. I'm like, is it content complete? I do believe it will be. Like I said, I still have the belief that it's going to be a fantastic game. It's going to get likely a critical panning from people that are just sick of Ubisoft, and then it's not going to do the numbers that Ubisoft have attached. They'll have something unrealistic, like we want 20 million copies in the first month. And it's like, nah.
I think that everything that's going on with it now, and the sort of public opinion of the Guillemot and Tencent relationship and everything that's going on with Ubisoft at the moment is going to harm the critical feedback of this game, and it shouldn't. But it's just a fucking nightmare. Like,
it is. But anyway, I digress. There's bigger things to talk about.
Bigger fish to fry.
I don't know if anybody had heard, Scott, at the start of this podcast, but the Nintendo Switch 2 is real. It's real.
It's certainly real.
Nintendo finally got up off their arses and confirmed the worst kept secret in the gaming industry today.
In a 1 minute and 40-second video?
Yes, and it's just a reveal.
It's fucking
nothing else.
I'm sorry, right? Just kicking this off.
Here we go.
That's fucking bullshit. Like, it's just annoying. Like, you wait this long to hear anything about it, and it's just and this is like fucking typical Nintendo. It's like, here is the starter, but you're not getting your main course until 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
3 months later. Like, I know that their hand has obviously been forced now because of all the leaks and stuff, right? And that's fair dues. But now we have to wait till April to find anything out.
2nd of April, to be clear.
So annoying.
Well, yeah, for the listeners' sake, Nintendo Switch 2 Direct is coming on April 2nd, where we will get more details on the console games. I'd imagine the release date and price at this point, Scott. I mean, before we dig into it, overall reaction to this 2-minute video?
I like the fact that it's bigger, longer, and uncut. I like that. But out with that, I mean, not even a discussion of like the changes or anything like that. It's just like you have to perceive from this 1-minute video what has changed. Do you know what I mean? Like, and a slight glimpse at a potential Mario Kart sequel, but who knows?
True.
But it's just like I'm probably the same amount of excited as I was before, because this just feels like a leak. Do you know what I mean? Like, this feels like someone's just made this up and put it on Nintendo's account for them. It's it hasn't piqued my interest anymore. It's the games. The games are going to sell this console to me. Like,
yeah, I mean, if Mario Kart 9 obviously been hinted at in there, hopefully it is, and it's not just more MK8 stuff, or if it's MK8 Deluxe.
I think they're showing. I think that is it. Andy Robertson.
VGC.
No, it's not him. It's Liam Robertson, the guy that does.
Oh yes, yeah.
Is it Resetera or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
He posted. He was talking about the character models and how they look more like
Donkey Kong's.
Yeah, Donkey Kong's looks more like his previous design, and Bowser looks more like the N64 Bowser. So, and you know, from what you can ascertain from if you were looking at this as a game, it doesn't look like a track. It looks like a road. It looks like route. What is it? Route 67. It looks like Route 66. So
yeah,
maybe we're driving all around the world.
Maybe here's my pitch: Mario Kart 9. Well, not even pitch. I bet succulent Chinese meal. I bet you they're going to have some type of multiverse gimmick on this. That's my. Do
you know what? It would make perfect sense. You can play as N64 Mario.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be like that. They'll try and weave in some type of kind of narrative over the top of it,
and that's the reason why the console's so powerful. It's Ratchet and Clank a rift apart, but you travel through different universes of.
Imagine
Marios
that, like,
that'd be cool as fuck.
You go through portals and it takes you through like different era, like courses
cool
and all that.
There
you go, Nintendo. Hire me.
They are. I actually came up with it. What I actually think it's going to be is, what was that game that was made where you could drive from one end of America to the other?
Oh, what was it called again? The Crew.
The Crew. This is Mario Kart The Crew.
I mean, that'd be pretty cool.
It's set in real world America, and you're just Mario Kart. It's like the Mario Karts. Mario Karts in Japan. I mean, like,
yeah, suppose. Yeah,
I mean, it's less exciting than portals and shit.
Driving through America, I have to admit, but yeah. But yeah, I think my own reaction was kind of same as you. Like, if I'm being honest, like, I feel like I have a duty to our audience here and making sure that we obtain a Switch 2. I can exclusively reveal on the show that Pixel Parents will not be getting a review unit to enjoy.
I mean, watch this space though. This is the year of the grift, and I know Miyamoto.
Expect the big thumbnail like we've not played the Nintendo Switch 2 during the previous cycle.
It's just ridiculous that whole pattern is just fucking outrageous.
I know.
Like, we've played fucking some game, and it's like, cool, mate. Like,
I know.
It's just like,
I don't know how I should word it. For me, it always comes across slightly humble braggy. But
it's very much like that. But I think I honestly just don't even know anymore. Like,
it's just,
I think what I've actually been wanting to say, because I've been thinking about this all day, but I think the fact that this direct is going to happen in April makes the likelihood of there being Zelda, Mario Kart, like the stuff that you were saying in your predictions, more likely than ever.
I mean, listen, I am hungry for some Chinese right now, so I hope it happens.
It's going to end up like a Big John's table in here.
It is. Want some, Kung Pao chicken, chow mein.
Kung Pao chicken, chow mein. Chow mein, poke balls. Bosh.
I think...
second official Bosh of the podcast.
Second one. We were talking about this beforehand in terms of release dates, and you put forward a theory of when you think it's going to land.
I don't know. We're saying that summer's a ridiculous time for it. So like August, September time, I think is the most logical. Like I don't think that you can say pre-orders now for a console going to release in a week later. Like yeah, the perfect time would be to release March, April time, but they obviously don't care about quarterly investments and yearly investments and stuff because Nintendo's making bank all the time. So
their own money.
So it's just like they obviously just don't give two fucks. And Nintendo, it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I think they're trying to be smart and delaying. Well, not delaying, but I think they're taking their time with the launch to make sure that there's enough supply there to get a good. I
think the supply is a big part of it. I also do think the games are as well. Like I think development of the games and stuff, like they've obviously been gestating for a while now, and I think that this extra few months is only going to help with that. But I do see if it comes out in September, you mean this is the Christmas console? Do you know what I mean? Like
100%.
It's just going to fucking explode. So the supply and demand, you know what I mean? Like I think that you're right in that manner. So
I mean, in terms of what it is, there's been no official specs that have been dropped by Nintendo, nothing more than just the image and the video. We can see the screen's bigger. They've kind of magnetic Joy-Cons have been confirmed. There's backwards compatibility as well that's been confirmed, but I'll come back to that in a second. They've kind of teased mouse functionality with it in the middle of it.
Maybe that's the new
gimmick. I mean, fair enough. I mean, okay. So that's something I will never use. And then you've got things like the Mario Kart games teased in it. Looking at what else was in that video, there's a few quality of life improvements that they've kind of hinted at. In terms of like the USB-C charger being at the top of the dock instead of the bottom, so you can.
I thought it was on both.
Both it is, yeah. So they've also got a new button on the Joy-Cons. What does that do? Is it a cast button, like you said the other day? Is it something else? Colours-wise, it's more black and sleek, which I'm a fan of. You've still got that kind of now iconic blue and red underneath the Joy-Con sticks themselves. I mean, there's a part of me that is underwhelmed because it's like, what was I expecting?
But then also excited because what were you expecting? Do you know what I mean? Exactly. Like it's exactly what you were expecting.
This is a tarted up Switch Pro. Like there's no getting away from that. But putting Switch 2 on it makes sense. I'm like, it still sells ridiculous numbers.
Yeah.
The thing that I would find frustrating, and this is the one thing that I'm most excited about now, according to leakers, is it's an 8-inch LCD screen. But I'm like, why is it not OLED? Because I've really, the one thing that I regretted with the Switch was not getting an OLED. I nearly did once when they had something hot UK deals. I was like, I've got it in Tesco, I'm going to go get it. But I would love it if it was an OLED one. But it's like, right, that's non-Nintendo. It's like, no, we'll squeeze you for that down the line, son.
It's coming.
So yeah, but I think in terms of power-wise, all we've got is rumours. So I don't really want to go into that now because I don't like talking about it. It's all speculation at this point. We're going to find out in April. But it's on its way, folks, as we had mentioned, probably towards the tail end of last year. Switch 2 is here. So my plan is that the Switch 1, or the original Switch, OG, whatever you want to call it, is going to get retired to my son, and he will enjoy that. But it's practically his anyway because it's fucking stuck to his hand with all the muck that's on it.
The muck.
Honestly, I'm trying to enforce a clean hands policy on controllers in general in this house, and he is testing me in ways I'd never thought I'd be tested.
That's what they're here for.
Honestly, I'm trying to teach him, like, look after your stuff. You know, it's not a dinner mat. So he'll be guilty of that. He keeps on trying to sneak the Switch while he's having a snack or something. It's like, no. Like, snack first and then that. And yeah, I mean, on that note, to kind of move off that a little bit, with the Switch 2 stuff, he's still been playing more Switch, but he's now getting more fond of playing the PS5, thanks to his cousin, who had showed him Spider-Man. So he'd been bugging me about it for ages, and I'm like, mate, like, you can't play it. Like, it's the control scheme's too exotic. But I was like, you know what? I better not be a grump. Let's just let him run about in it. And he's been doing that, and slowly but surely watching him. Like, and this, you're talking about like small, like 10-minute play sessions here. Watching him pick it up, it's been mental. Absolutely mental.
It's ridiculous.
He'll still prefer to go back to Astro Bot. But Spider-Man's fast becoming his new favourite thing, which is great. But I'm still, if I'm honest, I do struggle because I've usually got it in rest mode. I'm like, pause during something. I'm like, damn it, I have to go back and restart that. But yeah, but before we move on to our main topic, Scott, and let's say, I think we said that we have to do on Switch too. So more on that in April. But we've actually got a lovely wee bit of listener mail in this week as well. And that comes from a friend of the show, Adam Cunnels Miller. And I'm not going to read out verbatim on it, but he writes in with an update. As you remember, he was asking us about what games we'd recommend for his son on PlayStation 5. And Santa had actually brought them a PlayStation 5 over Christmas, the Lucky Ducks. And the good news is he's telling us that his son's now fully on board with Astrobot, which just absolutely warms the soul. And they're loving it. They started off with Astro's Playroom, giving the full game a go now, and they're really enjoying it. He's got some advice, which is if anybody's got wee ones that are on the autism spectrum, to give it a go, just because it's a lot of fun just exploring that world together. And they're just having a total blast. And again, yeah, he's sent some pictures in as well, just of his son enjoying it. Obviously, we can see that, you can't. And it's,
you can't see it though.
I know, but it's just getting that email really did, just
it sets,
put a big smile on my face.
It gives us fucking pause to realise that this is why we chose to do this podcast. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the key point here isn't, a PS5. It's not Astrobot. The key point of all this is we.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
they are playing it together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what it's all about. Like, we talk about these moments where you're playing with your wee one, I'm playing with my daughter. It's just like, these are the moments that as parents you fucking love.
Mm-hmm.
As dads who game, it's like, this is what you've wanted. This is what you've wanted your whole life. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they could be a wee bit better at it, would be also good. But
not too good with the computers.
We'll get there eventually. But what do you call it? Because I remember it happened with me with my nephews, and I was teaching them how to play fighting games, and it was Soul Calibur 6, and one of them fucking tanked me, and I was just like, this is pish. Like, I'm never playing this again. So you're right, don't let them get too good. But that's the reason why we do this. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've heard it time and time again. We heard it from Ryan. He's talking about playing, his Switch with his daughter.
Yep.
We've heard it from Adam as well. Like,
yep.
That's what it's all about. Like, it's phenomenal. So it's good shit.
It really is. And again, it's also added, like, it's even like the experience of the controller feedback and the son was amazing. It's like, we did take that for granted. Like, if you're a kid
mm-hmm.
and the way this technology is now, it will still blow your minds. And even if you're a parent with a child that's on the autism spectrum as well, it's like that type of stuff does go a long way.
It goes a long way, yeah.
It's exactly like you said. It's all about bringing families together through gaming, sharing that interest. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. It's just really cool just to hear that. And we love it. And again, Colonels, just keep us posted. Ryan, we've not forgot about you. We want to hear updates on what you've actually went for. And anybody else that's listening to the show would love to hear about just your general parenting gaming experiences, whether it's just something you do yourself or if you've managed to get the wee ones involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's
something. It's amazing how it can work.
Yeah,
like I've got a story about my nephew actually, and it was last week. We went to a family party, and immediately, I mean, literally the minute he walked in the door, ran straight up to me and says, "I completed God of War Ragnarok yesterday," and I was like, "Wow!" Like maybe 10, 11. I'm terrible with dates and names and fucking ages and shit, right? But 10, 11, 12 years old, and he's running up to me the minute he steps in the door to tell me he completed this game. And then I've got his mum was asking me, like, is that good? Is that good that he completed it? I was like, fucking brilliant that he completed it.
Aye.
Then he's telling me later on, like, I played it on easy mode, but I think I'm going to try and go through it on normal and stuff like that as well. So it's just encouraging, like, replayability and stuff as well.
Yeah.
And it completely goes against the grain of what we're going to talk about in a minute. Like, it completely goes against the grain of that. So it's just like, keep it going. Like, really encourage it. And it's brilliant. Like, and it's just seeing how it's affecting the wider family and stuff as well. Like, mum and dad are now taking an interest in what he's actually doing on it rather than just saying he's playing Fortnite and he's fine. Like, taking an interest in the games that he's playing and stuff and wanting to know more about it. So it was class. Like, it was really cool to hear.
Awesome. And you never know, if he tanks those Valkyries and normal even, fair play.
Aye.
Fair play. But Adam did close on a nice little segue for our main topic this week. He didn't even know it. So thanks, Adam. So he was just saying that he also agrees with us, we've also been talking about this previously, that there does need to be a shift in gaming right now because it feels a bit negative just now, and he does feel sorry for the kids having to deal with all that every time a game comes out. It must have been like off the back of a topic like Dragon Age and stuff. And that leads us on to our main topic this week, which is all about gaming culture, then versus now, or rewind or reset as we're calling it. So really we're just going to take some time just to kind of look back at gaming culture through the years, where we've got to now, and kind of, do we concur? Do we feel bad for the kids? Do we have optimism? Who knows? But I think the starting point for us, Scott, it's plain to say we're both, our first era gaming culture wise was in the 90s.
Yes.
I know you're going to say the 50s for me, but it was the 90s, right?
Pong.
Just Pong, not even that, just I had a little wheel and a stick. It was fantastic.
Just a piece of paper. 2 pieces of paper. Don't know what the ball is, but it's just...
We gathered round the light bulb. No, for us it was the 90s, which we will remember. That's the rose-tinted glasses for us, isn't it? More than anything else. Yeah. That's our starting point. And you're going back there very much in the, at the start of the ultra nerdy end of the subculture spectrum, I would say. But it was, I think, the 90s was the decade, I feel. Obviously, 80s was huge as well, but you had the crash. But the 90s is where it really transitioned into being more of a mainstream and key part of pop culture more than anything else. Gaming and, 3D, baby. That's it. That's the biggest part of it. I think that I do echo the sentiment that, gaming was hot. It was.
At that time.
So hot.
But not as hot as, what's to come. But I think PS1 around that time, being so young around that time, I couldn't have told you anything that was going on around then. I was just interested in playing Cool Borders and Games Odyssey. But
it was on the radar.
It was on the radar, yeah. And it was constantly like going into shops and you would see, games magazines on the shelf and you would look at them like you're purposely not buying them because you just want to see what's happening and like pure sexy game cover art and stuff like that. It's like, this is class. It was cool.
It was like that whole PlayStation generation vibe of the culture. Like it was a driver for it. Mm-hmm. It matched the feel of the 90s, the gaming culture, where everything was kind of cringe radical and extreme, but it was also the downside of it. It was quite a laddish culture, I would say, in the sense that it was games that were marketed more towards the teen male demographic, like you said, Lara Croft and all that. Mm-hmm. But in terms of it felt exciting, it felt punky to be into games at the time. You know, something that it still felt like something your parents wouldn't touch. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there'd be some exceptions there, and of course, there was parent gamers back then, of course. But for the vast majority, I remember this was something that only you and your friends would do. Your parents wouldn't understand it, at least on the whole. And as a culture thing,
thinking about the generations of parents at that time, like if you're talking even as a parent at 18, if you had a child in the 90s when they were 18, do you know what I mean? Like you'd have had a child when 18 years before that. So no, try and think. If you were born 18 years before the 90s, then you were going to be born in the 70s at some point.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So a child coming from the 70s, growing up, having a child born in the 90s, growing up and playing video games, you wouldn't have a Scooby.
No.
Like you might have a sort of, you might have had a sort of an eye on it being younger, but at that point in time, like you were working and stuff. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you were pushed out to work in the 70s. Like you were not forced to work, but there was more people out at work than ever before. So it's like, it made sense that these parents were not constantly in that zone. Do you know what I mean? Like they were, it was not a keen eye was sort of kept on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, overall, like in terms of the 90s,
I think what I was trying to say came out there, but aye.
There's a bit of Nolan math there, but we'll stick with it. But you touched on something there which I found was so crucial to the 90s culture for gaming, which was magazines.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this months ago with Alex on the show. But, magazines coupled with the playground culture, the hearsay around games, and that's largely part of like being a kid as well. But there was an innocent charm to it all. There was a punkishness. There was also like it felt at the perfect time because the 90s, especially looking back at it now, the 90s was banging compared to now. Like everything felt like there was optimism in there. You're talking about the new Labour generation and all that shite that came with it as well.
God.
But it was just like people just felt like, anything was possible in the 90s. And not like it is now.
Things can only get better.
Exactly. And I'm look back at it, only had things like Game Master on TV and stuff like that. Like gaming was
that big fucking weird face.
like Patrick Moore. It was very much like, there was still a punkishness, a coolness towards gaming in the sense of like it felt underground, but it was getting mainstream underground at that point. But you've got to the big thing that attributed towards the culture more than anything else, funnily enough, was the games. This was when, I don't think you've seen a decade that had more household name hits in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
Look at things like Final Fantasy VII, Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, big one, Pokemon. You know what I mean? Just take a second to absorb Pokemon and what that did culturally around the globe.
Ridiculous.
What it spawned.
The point to raise with just the handful of games that you've mentioned there is the variety of them.
Yeah.
Is that you had games that were the same, but this felt like an era of, try. It's like the innovation. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just go for it and see what works, see what doesn't work. Like Final Fantasy VII, from Final Fantasy 1 to Final Fantasy 6, every single one of those games is practically the same. 7 changed it.
Yeah, it went to the diesel punk style and all that.
8 was completely different. 9's different than that. So it's like, what franchise can you say changed like that every single game? Do you know what I mean? It's wildly different.
Yeah.
I mean, Metal Gear Solid potentially, but you're right. It's just the games were really what created the culture. Do you know what I mean? Like, and created the humans.
It definitely
and the personalities of that time as well.
It did, and how we kind of engaged with games in that. It was cool. It was like you were excited about it because there was still a sense of newness about it. It wasn't quite what would happen in the years to come, which is the noughties culture. But I'll also include the noughties culture because in the 90s, it wasn't a ubiquitous part of the living room setup, which is where I think the big change for noughties culture, which we'll move on to now, that's what drove a big change. I think the noughties gaming had started to move into the living room, and it definitely won the battle, and I think it won the war on the living room for a lot of families, thanks to things like the Wii.
Yeah,
like
PlayStation 2 as well. Like,
PlayStation 2 as well.
With the DVD player and stuff like that. Like that's attributed for the PlayStation 2 selling gangbusters. Do you know what I mean?
Unbelievable.
I think that one of the things that hasn't been mentioned yet, and you're talking about the Wii, talking about the PlayStation, talking about the 64, talking about PlayStation, every single console of that generation, 90s, noughties. And I think you start to lose that as time goes on. Local multiplayer.
Yep.
And going round to your mate's house and playing FIFA, going round to your mate's house and playing Tekken, playing Sonic Heroes, playing fucking Fighting Force, playing WWF games, playing Streets of Rage, Golden Axe. Like back in those days, like those are games. I've just mentioned games out from fucking Master System, all the way up to games like the PlayStation 2 and stuff as well. It's like these were defined. Those times were defined by local multiplayer, but also when you're talking about Pokemon, for example, and this whole factor of we learn. So stay with me on this one, right? Okay. Because there's a point to what I'm trying to say. But when you play Dark Souls games at the moment, there's and the whole sort of message system in it, there's an element of discovery in there that you are learning collectively as a group what to expect. So is there a hole there? Somebody has fallen down that hole, come back and put a message in. That sort of replicates what would happen in the school setting, for example, where somebody comes into school one day and says, mate, have you checked under the truck?
Yeah.
In Pokemon. Do you know what I mean? Like,
there?
Aye. Have you found missing no? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like it replicates that. So that's a good thing. But that's one thing that's been lost, is that this collective discovery, going into school and talking about the stuff that you've seen, the stuff that you've found, things that you can't find. You know what I mean? And even things like with Pokemon going in and trading stuff like that and shit as well. It's just like these things have been lost, but they were such a massive part of the culture that we had at that point in time. Like, I think it was forgotten about.
It is. I mean, stay with me in this one. I'll take you through a thread. But I think what you've got at there is that gaming and the culture had kayfabe of its own. Yeah. There was a naivety, there was a belief around a magic, I would say. That's just the nostalgia coming out. But if you look at it, where 90s cultures were, gaming such a big part of informing the 90s culture, and it piggybacked off it to only help its own popularity. So extreme sports like Tony Hawk's and all that, wrestling, which we mentioned before. And then you get into the noughties and you look at the launch of the Xbox, Bill Gates and The Rock standing there, and the Rock's obviously in his pomp, selling things, which he never does, and then shilling for things.
The shill.
And, taking that into a more mainstream audience, taking it into more like actual mainstream news, the events, the new console wars between Xbox and the PlayStation 2, and things only get better from there because you're still piggybacking off of other subculture success like wrestling and Tony Hawk's, and that was so tied to the culture at the time, which is if you were into skateboarding, you'd be having a PlayStation, you'd be playing a game. Into wrestling, same thing, you'd be playing it in the GameCube or something like that. And then it opened the doors, like perfect storm, this whole thing, into the realms of like Xbox Live, and the advent of proper at-home multiplayer gaming over the internet, which is when you start to see the culture start to shift, because the internet enters the conversation a lot more prominently. We've talked about it before. They had won, just as they had won the battle on the living room, and all those wonderful things you're talking about with like local multiplayer and co-op, would then start to become more distant and speaking to each other and engaging with each other in a different way. Now, I celebrate online multiplayer gaming because it has its benefits. Absolutely. We've spoken about it on the show. Like, it's a good way to keep in touch. It's a good thing for social life, but there was some downfalls with it, for sure.
Christ, I think
there's a lot of, this is when at the same time you're seeing this at the same, it was the parallel of like meme culture and all that. Gamer culture started to inform all that, and internet culture. And it comes a lot from gamer culture. When you look at our general, I think you stop using the word culture, but our general, world starts to become more internet focused, and gaming then slowly starts to not dictate, but be a key driver around it. Not only in how we engage with each other, but socially, but also just from a respectfully point of view as well. And it informs everything from like humour to everything else. I mean, you could even look at it, fast forward to now, to that skibbity toilet stuff and all that, you know what I mean?
Skibbity what?
All right, well, you can go Google that later, because I learned some stuff this week. But it wasn't just about that, though. It was also the fact that, like, noughties culture, I think gaming really then started to capture older generations. Now, I'm not even going to talk about the Wii. I'm talking about things like cinematic games and all that. And it really started to become a connoisseur choice. Things like Uncharted, Gears of War. It started to become more of a mature thing and not just for kids.
Yeah, 100%.
And I always remember that in the noughties, which was, there's all these games coming out, and they still have, there's another part of it that I'm going to get to, but you had like Uncharted, Gears of War, even Halo 3, these big watershed moments. But these were like all games that really weren't so like made for kids. They were like 16 and up, 18 rated in some cases. And that's when I noticed more and more on the shelf when you walked into Game Station or something like that. If I was a kid right now, I wouldn't be able to really buy any of these games for myself.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Autos and all that would have informed a lot of that, because that's a big part of noughties culture as well. But that became more mature.
Around that time, though, you've obviously got consoles like, the 3DS and stuff like that as well. If Nintendo and Xbox are focusing more on the adult game or pushing, these cinematic mad experiences. Nintendo are there coming up the back, where coming up like with your Zeldas, your Nintendos, your Marios and stuff like that, like Nintendogs,
the DS,
Professor Clayton. The Pokemon games still, Professor Layton, the Pokemon games still, insisting on themselves. So there was always something there, and it's telling that the Nintendo DS series of consoles also sold gangbusters as well.
It definitely did. I mean, I think, and as well, you've also got to look at how the media informs the culture and follows it. So it did become more internet based as well.
Yeah.
This is where you start to see things like IGNs of the world start to explode. Yeah. Video reviews in the early day. Go back and watch an early IGN video review. It's hilarious. Just in terms of like how much more polished everybody is in terms of producing content, which I'll come to. But this is where I think it was great for a while. It still felt new and exciting. Like every time that you got HD gaming, online gaming, stuff for adults, stuff for kids, everything you mentioned, it just felt like gaming was constantly innovating, and then it kind of started to halt because you only go so far.
Before you get there, though, is you've also got the rise in like peripherals and stuff as well.
Yep.
So like your Guitar Heroes.
Yep.
I started this with only Guitar Hero in mind, but things like the Wii, like like using the controller to control the Mario, like the carts in Mario. What else was there?
Tony Hawk Ride.
I was actually watching a video about Tony Hawk Ride today. Yeah. But it's just like there was obviously more than that, but they were enormous. Like I could remember watching adverts for Guitar Hero on the TV. It's just like, what the fuck is going on here? Guitar Hero Metallica, you had Guitar Hero Van Halen, you had
ones like SingStar, then Just Dance,
and like
Connect.
Buzz, the quiz game. Like
I can't remember that.
There was loads of these games, and you tend to find that 9 times out of 10 you would have someone in a family who would own it, and it would always end up coming out. And you also had consoles like that. I think the PlayStation 2 will have had it as well, but like Skylanders and stuff as well.
Yep.
Like
God, yeah.
Buying. And this is the advent of the Amiibo before Amiibos even existed, where you could buy these wee stupid characters and throw them in this game. It's like, why did nobody complain about this at the time? You're having to pay for a portal to then go and buy toys to put them on this thing. It's completely fleecing the families.
You would definitely get, so not to the extent now. I mean, they got away with a lot, but you're right. At no point, I think, was gaming really commanding more of a family or a household's attention.
Yeah.
At that point, because everybody, that's all I remember from the 90s, is that everybody like would be into gaming in some way, shape or form. Whether as I went to work, there'd be somebody, I'm like, he's not into games. It's like, oh, do you play FIFA, mate? And it's like, and it's like, add me in Xbox, add me in PlayStation, playing FIFA or Call of Duty, and it's like, that's all they'd play. But that kind of branch of the casual gamer is
and then that just rose exponentially from there as well. You've people who have consoles now just for that, which is class.
Biggest segment.
It's cool. That's brilliant. But it was just a total time to be alive, and it was obviously the time and space where you were obviously hitting your 30s around that time, so right. You'll have had your own money to spend. So it was good for you.
Aye, I mean, it very much felt like going through the noughties of the 90s into the noughties, this was very much like gaming culturally definitely defined the generations there. In the same way that music would have, like in the 80s and 70s and stuff like that, that was what they have, and it still continues to this day when you come into modern culture. And this is where the connective thread there now is not really being informed by pop culture, because gaming culture's permeated. It's internet, but now we're in an era culturally where it's a content-based era, where that's king. Here we are, but it's personality-driven, more community-focused type culture that we have around gaming, for better and worse. Now, this is where we start to, technically, I suppose, the noughties doesn't include Gamergate and stuff. That's probably like,
I mean, should have.
Probably should have, yeah. Kick it into the sea, please. But we've became unfortunately, there's part of it that's a more hyper reactionary culture, which is a natural destination for a culture that's so hype dependent at times. We're starting to, more often than not, the curtain gets pulled back, and now you can watch these things like the E3s, the Game Awards from the couch at home in your pants. And it's like, it's more diverse than it's ever been, but it's more combative at times with a push against fucking everything all the time.
It's just that it's relentless, this push. Like, it feels almost like...
Do they like gaming?
Do I? And, ultimately, probably not.
I mean, the thing I find sad about it now, and this is where the old fart comes out, but it feels now culturally that gaming can sometimes feel like a backdrop to, like, gaming itself, like the actual video games itself feels like...
I'm confused. It
feels like an afterthought. It feels like we use the games as a launch point to engage culturally, as opposed to really just playing the damn thing.
The game, the culture around games at the moment doesn't necessarily feel about the games themselves. It feels more to do with society as a whole.
And constructive narrative.
Aye, so it's like...
Constructed.
Take Dragon Age the Veilguard, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Not one person's talking about the content of that game.
No.
It's all about, DEI, all the sort of nonsense around people not enjoying how that was portrayed or the fact that they're portraying it at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same. It's frightening.
It's the same words that I'll look out for now on a general cultural basis, and gamer culture's no different because culture wars has permeated everything, and Dragon Age is a fantastic example because already when you're speaking to some absolute galaxy brain twit that's like, it's DEI, the writing was poor, and it's like, you haven't played this game. I can guarantee you have not touched it. You've watched some YouTuber with an overreactionary thumbnail that is shitting all over
I'm so glad you spoke about the thumbnails because I was going to bring it up. It's like, when can we stop having shocked faces on YouTube? Why is everyone shocked on YouTube? This is the Mr. Beastification of the fucking YouTube algorithm at the moment, is that we're firing out 4 million videos every single hour of people just being shocked about things on the internet.
It's absolute shock diarrhea.
Like, Mr. Beast, I can't even be asked talking about it. I can't even be bothered bringing it up because it's just ridiculous.
In a whole, it's a brain drain, and you're right,
they got the brain rot.
We come back to the other. I'm going back to the touchstone. So culturally, with this now, because of that, games media is all but gone at this point. Right, this is what I'm saying. It's now content creator focused, and YouTubers and micro communities being cultivated, and gaming as a culture has become hyper niche at points. So it's like you don't have to just be into gaming; you be into a genre of games or a game. It goes like that laser focus. Like, if I just want to watch stuff about Mass Effect, then there's a whole YouTube community about it.
If you want to watch stuff about YouTube, Souls lore, Vati Vidya's your man. Do you know what I mean? You know where you're going. So you're completely right.
But it's bigger than ever. But it feels like it could feel like a smaller mindset as a result.
It feels very insular.
It does
at the moment. Like, I don't feel it's a place where I obviously, on a regular basis, will listen to podcasts like Kind of Funny, for example, and it's good to keep up with it, but it almost feels like the people who listen to that podcast and who give super chats to that podcast and
I don't even know what that is.
It's a donation to get a comment read out, but it just feels like that's very much the whole point of it, is that it's paying to be part of the show.
Well,
whereas it doesn't really feel like the whole and right, I'm going to get into it really quickly about it because obviously the thing with their whole community drive in January was talking about, let's have a 10-year anniversary stream where we stream for 1 million hours to try and raise as much money as possible. Now, this isn't money for charity or anything like that. This is money for them.
Yeah,
and that's fine. That's absolutely fine, but it also feels a bit. It feels a bit horrid, like having a counter going across the screen of how many people have donated or subscribed and whatever it is, and it feels very much like this is children in need, but we're just paying ourselves. Like,
well, I've said to you for ages, as I mentioned, culturally, it's content creation.
Yeah,
here we are. Difference is we're not charging for it. I have no plans on doing that.
God damn it.
I know, sorry. I'm the blocker.
He's holding me back. He's holding me back.
I'm the anti-grifter, but it's very much like it's a busker economy. Like, if you think of the internet as, the Royal Mile, and you've got all these YouTubers up there with a stall with a guitar, and they're wanting a
maybe
couple of
you maybe
coppers.
need to explain the Royal Mile for people.
Okay, like just you're the main street in your local town, and there's nothing wrong with buskers, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you probably find that people may look down on that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's the same thing. That economy is based on just kind of doing the monkey dancing with the
Mm-hmm.
symbols, give me money, and then off we go. But it's diminishing returns. It's a tough gig. It's a tough life.
For me, that whole thing just felt dirty. Like seeing the numbers rise, and you know what, they make 1 million hours of content a week, which is great because that's all they do. But it's also very much like any counter like that showing up on a screen feels like it should be for charity.
It does, yeah.
And just looking at it, I was just like, I don't want to watch this because it feels wrong. Like,
yeah, and I don't know if that's more of an Americanized thing, like a telethon, like saying CBS or something like that.
It just feels a bit ridiculous. But
I should add as well, it's only one of many countries someone of that size would have. But you're right,
and for what you pay them for, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, this isn't a whole attack on Kind of Funny because they're brilliant, right? And I don't have the energy to fight all of them. I don't think I could take any of them. But
I would love that. Greg Miller versus Scott Carey,
just the battle of battle of loudness.
Yeah.
God. But what'd you call it? It just feels a bit, wrong and dirty. It feels like, dropping some food on the floor and you pick it up and eat it, but a wee bit too late, and it's like I shouldn't really have done that, but it still tasted good.
I mean, the thing I'm very impressed by it because it's like you look at that gorgeous studio and all the rest of what they've built in San Francisco, the most expensive city in the world. I think to hire all those people and keep that going, fair
amazing. Fair fucks to them.
But yeah, it's not just they're just one of millions. Now they're probably a successful example, but then you have, if we look back at the heyday of Twitter culturally, you had Nibel, whatever you want to call him.
God bless his soul.
But then he made that fatal error where he wanted to start charging people for what was effectively an RSS feed. He was taking other people's news and posting it. Now, was it handy? Yes. Does it have value? No. Like monetary value?
Yeah.
Because it's something you can get for free elsewhere.
The funny thing about that was it not like a month, 2 months later that Twitter started paying for monetization and stuff like that as well. So
Shinobi came and ate his lunch.
He would have made money on it, no bother. It's just, and
that's the sad thing.
Yeah, Nibel would have easily fucking.
He'd have been making
absolute bank at the moment. It's like the Fabrizio Romano of the gaming industry.
He was.
Google his name if you don't know who Fabrizio Romano is.
Surprised he never came back because there's money to be made there.
Yeah, but maybe it was tiring. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's the other thing. I mean, to have the volume of content he was putting out, it was unbelievable, and it became to the point where he was informing all of these other YouTubers that we're talking about, for better and worse. Kind of Funny is a good example, but then if you look at the other side of it, and they've got a much harder sell because it's harder to do that and still be on the correct side of the moral spectrum.
Yeah.
If you're on the grifter side, and this is the big phenomenon culturally,
Here we go.
This is Scott's dark side coming out. But it's like, we've said it before, if you want to make money culturally, you just have to then spew all the usual bullshit, nonsense, conspiracy theory, Trump-loving, absolute dog shit out there, and you make bank.
Hear of that?
You make bank.
Or you go viral talking about giving blowjobs on the street. You know what I mean?
Or you just put on like a very, I would say, an attire that makes you look like a nonce and it turns out you are a nonce. Disrespect. But so it's one of those things constantly. Now,
that's another fight I'd love to see you in fucking. Have you seen how tall he is?
I know, but you go for the legs.
Go for the legs. You know that, or you just
I'm over 6
walk
foot.
in front of him with a small child.
But I do say that all this because I wanted to get all the toxicity out there because we now come with the antidote, the cleansing, the heal.
Can I say one thing before you
go? Get the negative stuff
before you repair the gaming culture? In that, I was listening to a podcast recently, not to do with gaming, but it was a joke that someone made, and they were talking about how, when you're like scrolling through TikTok and you have those videos where the bottom half of the screen is the content that you want to watch, the top half is like somebody playing with Play-Doh or a scene from Grand Theft Auto, and they were talking about how the generation that we live in now, that the younger generation that are watching TikTok are not going to be able to digest news in like 30 years' time. They're going to have BBC News in the bottom half of the screen and Grand Theft Auto in the top half of the screen. And what's going to happen now is that video games are going to have to be made with that in mind. You're going to have an aspect ratio so you can have something else playing at the top because attention span is just too low.
Right, I mean, it's like that South Park episode where that like Cartman did the news, but then Craig just put out pictures of dogs with the white fish lines.
Oh, it was the song. What's the song?
Aye, that's what
So
we're getting
good.
to.
And what's the that Mr. Biao guy?
That's right, yes. We're getting to that point now. Like, I mean, you're now talking about content creators in large that outside of gaming that are like, if you need to catch someone's attention by the time it takes them to scroll. It used to be about 10 years ago, like working in digital market, it's like you call it the 3-second edition.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like less than a second. You have to, in fact, practically shout at the screen to like, okay, I'll watch, and then go. So, I mean, that's what you're up against is attention spans reduced. But what I will say, well, one final point is that we know the toxicity is off the scale culturally now. Every game has a controversy. Every reveal, there's a grift or a YouTube thumbnail that you talked about that promotes negative content above all, because algorithmically that's
how it works.
That's what does best. You know, we can't. There's a reason why we're like not ever going to be top of YouTube or anywhere, because our content is not designed to be negative. And this is where I come to the positive side culturally, because one positive ray of light I've seen through all this, wading through the shite that is current gaming culture at times, Blue Sky's definitely helped.
Yeah.
I think that's been a small ray of light, because for the first time in ages, it feels like a place where genuine gamers are just coming together just to talk about what they like. And that's it. I love going on there just to be like, I'm playing this game, I love it, it's cool, there's a little snapshot, and that's it. Nothing else, nothing added onto it. Even if the cynical side of me every now and then is like, there's maybe one or two where I'm like, it feels a bit disingenuous at times, but
but that, I think that's just the Scottish in us.
It is
like,
the Scottish in us,
it's naturally shun nice people. Like, the minute I see any positivity on Blue Sky, I'm almost like, just hide the post because it hurts.
What's his game?
Aye, like, what the fuck's he planning? And it's also like what we were taught in uni, and like, obviously journalism, was to naturally be skeptical of anything that anyone tells you. So it's just like, what kind of game are they playing?
I know. I mean, the thing for me is that humans are nuanced, multicultural, multi-interest beings.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just interested just in one thing. That's how I remember putting a skeet out earlier, just like, you know, anybody else into like movies and cooking and football, that type of stuff. Like, I love gaming, but I love so much other stuff. Who wants to talk about Jurassic Park with me? Let's you know, just that. But you know what? You'll find it on there. Yeah. And it won't, if you put that out on Twitter, it would be like, who wants to talk about Jurassic Park with me? It's like, Jurassic Park's the worst thing. And it's like, for God's sake.
No, you wouldn't even be that. Do you know what it would be?
A porn bot.
It would be a porn bot. Just that if you're Jurassic Park is
Raptors.
I love going to parks. And then she's like, DM me for more info or some bollocks like that. It's like,
it's mental. It's mental. But I do think, right, in terms of the future, right, because this is the whole point of this discussion and kicking off, going back to what Colonels had said, feeling bad about the kids. Now, come with me, right? Because I've got a theory that I want to share.
Okay.
Some thoughts. But sadly, I think the online culture and gaming will get worse before it becomes better. Now, you had said this so well a couple of weeks ago, Scott, but we do need to heal.
I said something cromulent for the first time ever.
Honestly, you could have turned it into a Michael Jackson song. Like, we need to heal. You know what I mean? So we need, more than anything else, from the technical perspective, right? We've badly needed this for over a decade at least. Social media regulation and standards to achieve a media that is good, fair, and promotes facts. We need to know about games again above reactionary content. We're not going to get there for a while because we're entering, in fact, until that day we're miles off it. You know, gaming culture is like any other subculture just now, isn't it? Which is, we're going to be victim to a world that feeds off, a growing pace of disinformation, misinformation, and negativity online.
You sound so happy saying it as well.
I know, but it's because of this, and I think if you hold this up against the growing rate of AI just now, gaming culture, as well as all other cultures, but I think gaming culture will be the leader on this, will move away from this space first. I really do. I think I hope and I can see a future that wants human connection again, that meetups, events, genuine interaction, engagement with people, with a person's voice, face to face. We're getting deep fakes, like you mentioned before. Like, people are wanting authentic content.
When did I mention that? Are you talking about the Brad Pitt thing from earlier?
Oh yeah, we're talking about Brad Pitt. Yeah, but I mean, go Google that. But I think culturally, I think gamers in the not too distant future, we're going to start anew and go back to our roots. Everything that we talked about in the 90s that we loved is going to be there again. I have hope that the next trend we're going to see that gamers are going to start to come together again and share and enjoy the hobby we love together in person. I think there's only so much crap we can take, with Trump 2.0 incoming. The nutters are going to take things past the point of endurance. I think AI is going to explode at a rate where we're going to enter into an age of authenticity first, as opposed to everything we talked about in the noughties and all that with internet was an internet age. Now it's going to be authenticity focused. And I can see us healing through that. I really can. I think our kids and the next generation are going to then start to benefit from other things which will be bougie, but part of the culture. Look at music. It happened to that. The internet came, absolutely shat all over it. Look at Spotify. What happened? Vinyl became so hot right now. I think the same thing's going to happen with like gaming magazines. You're starting to see these kind of like bespoke, smaller print run ones, and I do believe that print is going to have its heyday again across the board. I think you're going to see a magazine industry pop up through that very dedicated hardcore, and culturally that's going to do wonders. I think people are just going to be like that. I'm fucking sick of this social media pish because the gloves are off now.
So do you think that, just kind of coming off the back of that you basically take yourself away from media and that you try and focus on these gaming magazines, like sort of focus on that sort of community, rather than getting all your information from Twitter? It's
but you'd probably find it be a mix, but one will inform the other and we start to go full circle again.
Okay,
I think that's what I'm getting at, is that we're at this point now where we've tipped the scale. It's about to get so much worse to the point where it will collapse in itself. There's only so much nonsense you can put out there before either people become shambling, dribbling husks of themselves where they do not know their arse for their elbow, which we're pretty close to. But at that point, I think there's only good that can come out of that. It has to get... I'm not going to do it.
What?
I was going to quote The Dark Knight. But it has to get very dark before we start to see those rays of light. But I do think culturally, there's reasons to be optimistic.
Do you know what the ray of light is? Is that everything just fails. Everything goes wrong. One single spotlight shines down. And what it is the profile picture of Nebel comes back and Nebel returns and heals the world.
That's all we need.
That's all we need.
A Nebel magazine.
Nebel magazine. We can call it because his name was Nebelion.
Nebelion.
So it's Nebelion, the Nebelion of Twitter. Nebellion. So it's a play off rebellion.
Nebelion, aye. We can do that.
There you are.
I mean, I don't know obviously this is just an absolute fucking mad theory, but I do honestly think, and I can see the trends happening around us in day-to-day work and in day-to-day just existing at this point in time. But it will get worse, but it will get better. And I do think culturally gaming has a lot to benefit from it, because picture it, like talk about LAN parties again, co-op gaming, indie developers releasing games that are like, do you know what? Well, it is a co-op game, but it's not got online functionality. We want you to play it and the couch next to each other. Obviously, it would sell about 2 copies, but I mean,
I do hope that continues. But then, if that's the case, then you're talking about, the heyday of handheld consoles, what we were talking about before. Totally fucks that idea. Like, maybe you play it handheld one on card, I don't know, right? But it completely screws up that idea. I'm hopeful as yourself, but also there's the part of me that's like, there are too many old fucking idiot cunts that run the world that literally don't understand what AI is. It's like,
so funny.
Oh, that AI, like, all right, let's just go for it. It's like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, and we've also got the fucking biggest cuck on earth, Elon Musk, just destroying the entire world because nobody likes him. See, if somebody just became Elon Musk's friend, maybe he would shut up and fuck off. Like, this big, stupid Canadian idiot. Is he Canadian?
No, he's
South African. I knew he was South African. I don't even know why I said Canada. I think he lived in Canada. Cool. But he is honestly, see the minute somebody just tells him, I said this before, right? Is that when I was growing up, or when I was talking to my wife about it, when you're talking about kids growing up, and they say, when one of them starts to get annoying, or when, children try and get a wee bit too big for their boots as teenagers, sometimes you just need a punch. Sometimes you just need battered, and that's it. Somebody just needs to go and fucking fuck it, Elon Musk, and maybe he'll just fuck off.
Yeah, like, disclaimer, the Pixel Picks podcast.
Do not endorse violence. Do not endorse violence. I do not. But it almost just feels like, see the minute he just goes away, then we're all going to be fine. But that's the good thing is here is that he is the one leading the charge on AI. Because if it was anyone who looked and acted like a normal human being, would maybe be under a bit more concern for it. But the fact that he's the one in everyone fucking universe, he is the Hulk Hogan of the world. And like, Hulk Hogan is bad anyway, but he's the Hulk Hogan of the tech industry because he's a total
cringe
dauber.
He is.
He's just an absolute fud. I think that's the only thing that gives me hope is that he is the one leading the charge on this.
It's a very good point because it dovetails precisely with gaming culture and mainstream culture. Is he streams? There's been accusations about him paying people
on Path of Exile.
Yeah, to get the leaderboard because when he does stream, he's terrible at it.
Yeah,
but that is a microcosm example. Is exactly where I think we're going. Like, I think as a society and then gamers leading the charge on it.
Yeah,
well, we see through it. You see through the AI nonsense. I think the majority of gamers out there, despite how toxic it is, that is a very vocal minority of people. And the majority of gamers are just cool folks that just want to play and enjoy the hobby and tell stories, enjoy stories, and just not be arseholes about it.
I think that the good thing about it is that the minute there is anything to do with AI in a game, either it be voice acting, either it be sort of the stuff that's created in it, it's immediately questioned and it's brought up and people are totally against it, which is why you have, strikes, SAG-AFTRA strikes and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, the people are pushing against it, which is great, which is what you have to do. I do think there's a place for it though. I think the AI has its place because I watched a video today talking about the recreation of Liberty City in Grand Theft Auto 5. They made a mod for that and it used AI upscaling tools. So it's like,
upscaling, that's pretty cool.
There's a place for it, but
the pisser tech.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where used in the correct way, it can really, really help. But if you're talking about you mentioned it the other week, talking about video games made entirely using AI, it's like, no. He's peace.
We will inherently reject it because it's not authentic.
Unless it's good.
That's the other thing, but it comes back to that thing about this age of authenticity.
It's the grift.
It's the grift now. But the reason why it's getting, don't forget who's pushing it. It's very, very rich people, and it will make them more money, make everybody else less, and it will take away jobs and opportunities. And in the gaming industry, it's a creative art form. There are wizards that make these games. I don't want that replaced by some bullshit AI. Don't forget, AI can't create anything new. It only uses stuff that's happened before.
I mean, I tried to use it today to create that image of Gru with the Nintendo Switch handles on him, and it was dog shit. Like, it just didn't work because who's going to make Gru with Nintendo Switch handles? So I ended up making it myself.
Exactly.
But it's, Aye.
On the whole, to sum up though, like we've said our piece. I mean, I'm feeling optimistic for the next. To answer Currency's question, I think that I feel sorry for not just the kids, but every gamer right now for what we're going to have to endure and currently endure with the downsides of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm optimistic. I do think that we're going to push back, and gaming culture is going to surprise us and lead the charge. And I do think that we're going to do some really cool stuff, and I'm looking forward to that. Even when I'm an old dinosaur and there's like meetups and LAN parties and all that shit, it's like, let's do it.
That's the one thing that as a podcast we should get better at.
Yeah,
is
we should.
attending things, because
God, I'm not going to have to reject your grift live.
Horrible. I know you will. I'm horrible at social interaction, like in person, over online, and over this I can talk shite, and I'm not my genuine self, because this is like heel version of me, but I'm not this mental normally, but it is, it's a tough one. I don't know if I feel less optimistic for the future. I want to have optimism because
maybe in time
I have a child growing up in this era, so it's like protect them from the absolute chaos, but I'm seeing it with children kind of I'm familiar with, that they have iPhones and it is just looking at like it's brain rot, that's what they call it. It's just nonsense that they're looking at. So it's very much just like, as parents we have a responsibility to educate on that. We spoke about this before in one of the episodes, talking about educating on sort of online tools and stuff, and it's very much a part of it. So hopefully that will help us in the future, and it'll, because common sense prevails for the most part, but there are too many fucking idiots in the world that post content online, and we're two of them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
we are two of them. Yeah,
we're adding to that pile. But somewhere in the world there's going to be a, what do you call those where all the rubbish goes? Landfill, not a landfill, but what's the one that sails?
Oh, like is it like a landfill barge or something like that?
Like one of those things, but that it's just going to be filled with years of content from the idiots. I was going to say nonsense there. From idiots in the world. I'm getting the word. It's just going to be filled with just idiots worth of content, and we're going to be part of that in the future.
Well, we will be just a very tiny corner of it.
Just me shouting into this microphone.
We'll just be like flakes of salt on top of that pile. But listen, like I said, I'm optimistic, but I'm intrigued to see anybody that's listening to this. Where are you at? Leave a comment on Spotify, leave a comment wherever you listen to it. Email us.
Shout out really loud and I'll hear it.
Shout it in your car. Do something. We'll hear you. But I'm really intrigued to hear what your thoughts are. Are you optimistic? Are you a little bit less optimistic?
Pessimistic.
Are you pessimistic? How do you feel about the next generation's gamer culture, what they're inheriting, what we heading into as gamers?
That's a good question as well. Is that we think about the kids, but what are we?
Me, I'm still optimistic. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. We've got to trudge through 4 years of absolute jobby first, but we'll get there. But I digress. I think we should move on now, Scott, to wrap things up, which means that it's time for the Pixel Picks Showdown, where each week we each pick a game from our chosen theme and decide which one deserves to live on the hallowed Pixel Picks list, which is our definitive list of the best games we recommend to pass on to the next generation of gamers. Now, last week's theme was Hero FPS game, with Overwatch becoming the latest addition to that list. And this week's Showdown, we're debating what best arcade racer game we think should feature on the Pixel Picks list. Now, as always, last week's winner goes last, so that's you, Scott. You won last week.
Every single time that you do it, I forget how it works, but yeah, I won. It was the coin that chose me.
That's it. The coin hates me. So let's get to it.
You've won every other time the coin has chosen.
The coin does hate me and it hates Naughty Dog. So for me, this is a tough one, because I didn't actually think, I thought I've got no skin in this game. I'm going to get found out immediately.
I was the same, yeah.
And then I started to go down the list, and I've got an answer here which I know could win, and I've got an answer that I know won't, and I'm going to use the one that could win as my honourable mention, just to be an awkward shite, right, because I want to go with my heart and I have a reason for it, right?
Okay.
So my honourable mention this week, because they're both bangers, right? My honourable mention this week is Crazy Taxi.
Okay.
Right? Which, of course,
Aye.
iconic.
That's the only thing I know about Crazy. I never played it.
Oh man, it's just peak 90s gaming, man. Like, playing it was like a quintessential arcade experience. And even if it was one of those games, if you ever had it in a demo, you had to play it.
Yeah.
At your friend's house, you had to play it. And if you're lucky enough to own it, you can stop playing it.
And was it a Dreamcast title?
Indeed. Okay. And then there was other ports as well.
There was other ports of it, yeah.
It was fast, frenetic, and you racing against the clock. Chuck in some absolutely batshit jumps, and then of course the punk rock soundtrack. It just had the right time. It couldn't have come at any other time than the 90s. And again, just it was a shake-up that the genre needed, I think. It just took kind of arcade racing, did its own little thing, took a spin on it, and yeah, I can't wait for it to return because I think Sega are remastering or remaking that.
It's one of the games that's on the list.
Yeah, so I mean, I thought, right, I couldn't quite pick it because I'm going to go for a more orthodox pick in terms. When I say arcade racer, I'm thinking, right, what can I pick here? There's a few options.
Did you Google it?
No,
I did.
For me, it immediately came to me because I was thinking about culture, right? And I couldn't get this off my brain. So my pick this week is Need for Speed Underground. Right? Because same what I said before, but iconic Pete Naughty's gaming. If you were around during the time of the original The Fast and the Furious franchise, the impact on pop culture that it had, man, like, you know that this game, talk about hitting at the perfect time, this game came at the perfect time.
It almost feels like too perfect.
It really did.
It's like someone Illuminati is just like, let's get these both out.
Let's get it out there. I mean, the way Crazy Taxi took like punk rock and amplified it, and it just fits so well. You get Need for Speed Underground taking that kind of fascination with underground street racing through like the Fast and the Furious, kind of more rap star culture, Pimp My Ride and all that was huge at the time. And this was basically the best Fast and Furious game that you could have. It was basically boy racer heaven.
Would you say it's the best Need for Speed game?
Personally, aye. I mean, maybe there'll be other boffins out there that's played some of the newer ones and it's probably mechanically better.
I know. Look at the box art because I can't remember which it was, but
it was one of those ones though. Like, see, like customizing your car, pimping your ride.
It was unreal.
Oh, man, it was absolute like Ned heaven.
You
know what I mean? Like,
Ned heaven.
It really was.
Which was the one that had I'll be telling because I'll know exactly which one it is.
You're probably thinking of 2.
I think I am thinking of 2.
Need
for Speed Underground 2 was my favourite because it had Black Betty on it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it had soundtrack for days, man. Like, but it's like I had to go with the first one just because.
It was.
I think it was a lightning in the bottle feel to it all, and it was like this was a game.
NOS and all that.
Exactly.
Oh, here we go, man.
Going through those underground races. Just look at me. I'm Vin Diesel.
And thinking about it now, I've always wanted that game to be like remastered in a way, or to be brought out again. But it almost feels like one of those games that should really just stay where it was because it was such a product of its time. It really did capture everything to do with that era. It was just ridiculous. Like,
you couldn't have released it any other time.
No.
I mean, if you remastered it now or remade it, you're right. It would just be like, what the fuck is this? Like, it feels a bit cheesy, but at the time it hit
and it handled phenomenally. Like,
it did.
Even at that, it was just. I played the Need for Speed Underground games religiously.
That was it.
Back in the day. Like, I can remember coming out of the garage in Underground 2, but coming out of the garage in Underground 2 and just having, Blackberry. Well, I was like, fuck. And like, Riders on the Storm and stuff like that as well. Like,
exactly.
Grief.
It's one of those games as well. Like, the reason I've picked it is also because it has a special place in people's hearts when you mention it, and it does deserve its flowers. Hence why I just wanted to pick it, because it's a game that went across, it permeated across hardcore and casual. I remember my next door neighbour at the time, all he would play was football games. So it was, at the time, it was Pro Evolution Soccer and This Is Football. Shout out to people that remember that. And the odd FIFA game. But he had this as well, because that was the thing at the time. Like, underground racing, Fast and Furious having a Nissan Skyline poster on your bedroom wall.
Aye.
You know what I mean? That and like posters of Vin Diesel and Eva Mendes and shit. It's like everything together. And it was one of those games I remember everybody was getting it at Christmas that year.
Yeah.
And everybody was either, if they didn't get it, they were going out and buying it. Somebody would have it. And it was just culturally just such a big thing. So I had that in the brain when I made this pick. But I'm intrigued to hear what yours are, Scott, because I don't think I've picked the winner.
I'd argue Kevin made your point.
Okay.
I really struggled with it because the distinguishing between an arcade racer and a regular racer is quite different in terms of the sort of process and what you're doing. Arcade racer feels more. It's not as racy as like a regular racer. It's like there's less to it, but it's more gimmicky in a way. So I did think about your classics like your Outrun, Daytona, USA and stuff like that, Ridge Racer, but I don't have enough in my head to even think about those games. Where it really hit, if it wasn't going to be Need for Speed, you're not talking about a game that's been made in the last 5 years.
No,
you could talk about Forza. I'm surprised you didn't, but
I was going to, but I mean, it's a fantastic game.
It's definitely one of those. But for me, the generation of arcade racers really hit around the time of Need for Speed, and I did toy with the Need for Speed. I don't have an honourable mention because I think if we're looking at it in all seriousness, I think I could put Need for Speed Underground in there. Probably 2 though, because 2 is my favourite. Where I really sat down and thought about it was, what game did I play most in terms of arcade racers? And there was one that stood out.
Right.
And I could say that if Need for Speed Underground 2 was the one that I played second most, this was the one that I played religiously, like relentlessly. And my mum bought me it. I got it at the same time. I think I bought it in the same time as Metal Gear Solid 3.
Right, okay.
And the game we're talking about is Burnout 3.
Oh, yes.
Burnout was fantastic before Burnout 3 Takedown, but Takedown just took everything that you knew about the Burnout series and just flipped it on its head. I mean, going through those races and the moment to moment where you'd crash into the people and they would fly away in slow motion and the cars would just tumble and just old. Destroy. It's fantastic. It delivered that in spades, and it feels like, if we're talking about Need for Speed being a product of its time, that felt more. It felt the same way, and that EA were cooking. Oh fuck! They were like Ainsley and Harriet in that kitchen, like they were going mental. But it just felt like it just felt right, that level of destruction and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but it was the pace of it, like driving in these races, and you were flying, but it felt fucking brilliant to handle. You're cutting in and out of traffic. You were getting points near misses and stuff like that. You see the points rise in the counter. You're crashing into folk. You're seeing these cars go flying. It's just like, oh my god, this is amazing. But that wasn't it. That wasn't all it had. The shining light in the Burnout series was crash mode.
Yep.
Where you were given the task to create the worst crash and just destroy this car. And I think I can't remember it I can't remember it clearly in my head, but I just remember launching yourself into oncoming traffic or piles of traffic and just seeing how much damage you could do. And I remember a gauge would fill up as you done it. I don't know if this was in 3 or it was later, but eventually when that gauge got high enough, it would set off an explosion and just create even more chaos around it. And I just remember you would get like points. It was like gold. It was like silver, bronze, silver, and gold. And you would get a certain level. And I remember going through this day after day after day after day just to get it. Didn't have the level of customization that you would get in a Need for Speed. But it was just a complete package in terms of what it offered, and it did something different. Like it was emblematic of what EA were doing at that time with like your Def Jams, your NBA streets, your NFL streets, your FIFA streets, Mercenaries. Like all the games of that time had this certain attitude, and it wasn't an EA big title. I think it was just a regular EA title, but it was just it just felt right in terms of the way that it controlled and stuff like that. So when I thought about it, and I thought about it seriously, because we with Pixel Picks, I don't really take them seriously until I sit here. But Burnout 3 Takedown was if I look at formative games in the past, that is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Because I'd had completely forgotten about it until now, but it was just a brilliant experience. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think off the bat, I'm happy to put that on as the best game, because I do accept it's like, as a game, Burnout 3 is endlessly more playable as an arcade racer. As you're right, Need for Speed Underground, it was more about the swag. Don't get me wrong, it was a tight game, right? But
it's EA as well, wasn't it?
It was EA. They're cooking, man. They're cooking. But I do accept, I think, Burnout 3 should be on that list, because I mean, it's just a juggernaut. When you talk about arcade racers, I mean, Need for Speed Underground, probably the best cultural game of the time. But it's not that's not the category. I think arcade racer, I think this is the one that I was hoping you wouldn't pick, to be honest. I can't argue against it. So yeah, congratulations to Burnout 3. I think that's an open and shut one for me. Don't know if you've got any rebuttals.
Any rebuttals from my own game? I don't think so. I think that, if you could, I mean, not that we do this here, but if you could have ties on it, because I think there has to be a place somewhere on the list for a Need for Speed Underground, because
there might be.
It is just, honestly, it was just a complete moment in time, and I think that more people would agree that it's Need for Speed.
I mean,
but I think that
I don't know.
As an arcade game,
I don't know. I think
Burnout feels more arcadey than the rest of them, but I also don't think it is very arcadey. I can't remember. I've not played it for so long.
No, it definitely is. It's definitely.
I've always been intrigued by like Burnout Paradise and stuff like that, the remastered and stuff as well. Like, I've always been sort of interested in it, but
I enjoyed Burnout Paradise. I didn't play it for too long, but I remember playing it back in the day. I think I may have got it on PlayStation.
I think it's on PlayStation. It's been on PlayStation Plus, I'm sure.
Aye, it's good. I think the remastered is on PlayStation Plus. It's good just for like an afternoon game, to be honest with you, or a weekend. But
it's I'll say this: it's a series, not a series of games, but it's a genre of game that I don't have any interest in now.
No,
like,
although
I've tried with things like Drive Club in the past, and I've played The Crew, I've played Dirt, I've played Forza. No interest.
But have you experienced Forza?
I've experienced enough of Forza
Horizon.
Yes.
Oh man, Horizon. I was shocked, because I'm with you. Racing's not my go-to style of game. I do envy like
the people who can do it. Just
can do it, because it's like, that's especially like Formula One games. I remember getting one Formula 197 or something like that back in the day. Bored the shite out of me and never went back. But it was like Horizon. It was just fun, because it reminded me of like being on like GTA Online and just taking racing challenges all day. But yeah, but I digress. I think we need to watch our time here, because this is going to record length here.
Good grief.
So, well done to Burnout 3. You are now the official entrant. 42.
When did we just
41
stop? When did we just stop and admit that the podcasts are just longer now?
Oh, they are longer, but this is it. And for not a penny out of your pocket, I should add. For God's sake. But we are, can you believe that's 41 entries on that list?
That's
and
disgusting.
We might have to dedicate an episode when we get to a certain number to maybe go through them all and rank
them all.
Anyhow, that brings us to the end of this week's podcast. So,
do we do like a? Sorry, I know you're trying to cut this shorter, but do we try and do like a best of the best, like a pool where they all go 1-on-1 against each other and see who comes out on top?
Oh man, we could put them all in there. Yeah, like just kind of like a bracket. Let's do that. That sounds like fun.
That's a whole episode. There you go.
Whole episode, and that will be coming soon.
The best game of the Pixel Picks list, top 50.
Listen, I said this at the start before I wrap things up. We have got some things in the pipeline here, topics and such to talk about. Even next week, I'm looking forward to. And the Pixel Picks one next week is going to be hilarious for you.
For me?
It's going to be absolutely hilarious. I cannot wait, because, listen, Liam's getting back on the board.
It's been a while. It has been a while.
Coming for him. But yeah, stay tuned on that. But like I said, it's the end of this week's podcast. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And if you like what you hear and enjoy the podcast, leave us a wee 5-star review. It helps us out, and of course, it makes a big difference. Scott, it's test time. Where can people find you online if they wish to engage with your grift?
I am on Blue Sky at Llamaman pixelpicks.bsky.social.
He's done it, folks. He's done it. The streak is alive and well. If you want to catch up with myself online, I am at carmelite.bsky.social. And thank you again to our producer and music man, the talented and handsome Mr. Sean Murray, who of course you can hear on our Christmas special. So not quite festive time of year, but it's an excellent episode, so please do go and check that out. And of course you can listen to that and the next episode on all major podcast platforms, and follow us on Blue Sky at pixelparents.bsky.social. And of course write to us, as Colonels did, at pixelparentspodcast@gmail.com. But until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and thanks for listening.
I hadn't thought about what I was going to say.